Hello and welcome back. This time I'm going to show you different ways to configure the primary key of an entity. In the previous video I showed you how to follow EFC conventions, so EFC would automatically recognize and configure the primary key for you. We would use a public property of type int, and the name of the property should be either ID or name of entity plus ID here. However, sometimes this is not enough. For example, you might want to have a user entity where you want either the username or an email to be the primary key. And sometimes you need a composite primary key, meaning a primary key which includes two or more properties. Now, this person is obviously not a great example because two people might have the same name, but it's just an example. So let's go over how to do this. We're going to just scratch in the surface of the Fluent API for entity configuration. Here we are in Writer once again. Let's start with the user class and a username which will be the primary key. I create the class with the username property of type string, and in my DB context subclass I will override another method called onModelCreating. In this method we can use the Fluent API for all kinds of complex configurations. Now look, I used the model builder to say that the entity of type user has a key, and as an argument I pointed the property which should be the primary key with this lambda expression. To verify this actually works, I can open the terminal, navigate into the EFC project, and type in this command. The EFC tool will then find the DB context in the project at this location. It will look at the DB sets, of which I currently have none, but we will get back to these later on. And it will call the onModelCreating method for further configuration. Then the output is the SQLite script necessary to make the database match the current DB context. I use this command sometimes for debugging purposes because nothing will actually be changed. It's just nice to see what EFC will actually do to my database. Currently there is no database, so no tables, and that's why we see a create table statement here. Inside we can also see that the user table has an attribute called username, and it is defined to be the primary key. So all is good. Next, let's try the composite key. I create the person class with two properties. And in the DB context onModelCreating method, again, we use a similar approach to define the composite key. So I use the model builder to say that the entity of type person has a primary key. And this time the primary key is defined with an anonymous class consisting of the two properties, first name and last name. Again, we go to the terminal, and with the same command here, we can inspect the script and see the person table with a composite key defined. And that's it. You now have three ways to define a primary key for your entity. You can use EFC conventions, you can point to a single property, or you can combine multiple properties into a composite key. We are going to need each approach in future videos. For now, thanks for watching.